There are few places in the world that haven't felt the impact of the track-type tractor. For 100 years, these machines have been moving mountains, bending rivers, and blazing trails, leaving an indelible mark on history.
Track layer is designed to go into rough going. Maybe not so fast, but to go into rough growing and loose dirt and soft dirt and hilly dirt and anything like that.
We just take it for granted nowadays, but 100 years ago it was a different story.
In the 19th century, horses and mules and oxen were king when it came to pulling and plowing in America. But times were changing. Go west, young man, and grow up with this country was the battle cry. There was, of course, the gold rush, and later the agriculture industry in California began to bloom. Benjamin Holt and Daniel Best were there at the beginning, both developing forerunners to the modern-day combine. Throughout the decades, the two families would compete, merging and splitting at various times. In the early part of the 20th century, their respective steam traction engines were replacing animals in the fields. Still, the soft soil proved challenging for the large-wheeled machines to navigate. Then, on the 24th of November, Thanksgiving Day, 1904, Holt tested his first track-type tractor. The machine's first test was in the spongy ground near Stockton, California, and was pronounced a decided success.
And it was able to cross the wet, not the wet, it was not wet, it was boggy, kind of peat soil, if you're familiar with peat. And then it stayed on top of the ground, was able to pull the combine. But all this was just to pull combine harvesters so they could harvest the barley and the wheat in that area. That's why it was such a revolutionary machine, but it was strictly a local situation.
Tracks were not a new idea, but Holt had taken the solution to a local problem and embarked on a journey that would ultimately revolutionize agricultural and construction mechanization and usher in the age of the track-type tractor. Soon after the initial tests, Charles Clements, Holt's company photographer, said, "If that don't look like a monster caterpillar." Holt thought the name was appropriate and went on to register Caterpillar as a trademark. Within a couple of years, Holt had developed a gasoline-powered tractor crawler, the Holt Model 40. While the earliest crawlers were used primarily to pull ag implements, there were new opportunities on the horizon. One of the Holt 40's first big tests came in Southern California. The blistering heat couldn't stop Holt crawlers from hauling supplies for the construction of the Los Angeles Aqueduct. Combined with sand attacking the tractor's undercarriage, the conditions were harsh, but they just helped to prove the dependability of Holt's new gasoline tractor. In 1910, Daniel Best's son, C.L., formed the C.L. Best Gas Traction Company. And in 1913, the company's first crawler, 75, was the first tractor to bear the Best Track Layer trademark.
They could navigate where nothing else could. Somebody that had a wet ground or soft ground or on sandy ground like a beach or something, they could go. The guy with the wheels was either had to get on a horse maybe.
6 years later, the company began producing its signature machine, the Best 60. The Best 60 marked a significant turning point in the evolution of the crawler tractor, engineered with all the lessons learned over the previous decade. Among its many features, improved oscillating track sections and bearings that reduced friction and wear in key mechanical areas.
And hardly anybody that you know doesn't praise the old 60. The Rice men loved it because it was very well balanced, and when they took it out in the mud, it didn't go down in the backside like most track layers, and it ran level, and it would handle quite a bit of mud.
The Best 60 would transition into the Caterpillar Tractor Company's first product line as the legendary Caterpillar 60. Of course, track-type tractors did well for themselves on farms, but they were also excellent machines for road building work. In 1914, the first full track-type tractor was a reality with the introduction of the Holt 45. By eliminating the front wheel, all the tractor's weight was on the tracks, providing a short turning radius. It is during that same period of time that Holt unleashed the mighty Holt 75. The Holt 75 also found itself in the heat of the battle, unequaled as a heavy artillery mover in the muddy battlefields of World War I. In fact, British officer Ernest Swinton, considered by many as the father of the tank, said it was the Caterpillar track-type tractor which inspired him and in turn helped change the course of the war. Not too long after the war ended, so did the competition between the Holts and the Bests. On May 1, 1925, the two companies merged to form the Caterpillar Tractor Company, known today as Caterpillar Incorporated. The initial product line consisted of 3 Holt models, the 2, 5, and 10-ton, and 2 models by Best, the 30 and the 60. 2 years later, the first Cat-designed machine, the Model 20, joined the product lineup. The success of the early tractors was limited by their gas engines. It was felt that a new engine, one that could use a wide range of fuels, all less refined and cheaper than gasoline, was not only needed but necessary. In 1931, Caterpillar introduced the first diesel-powered tractor, the Diesel 60. It offered vastly superior fuel economy by cutting operation costs in half. Soon after, more models would follow, including the RD4, which was introduced in 1936. In 1937, the R was dropped from the names of all of the diesel machines. What is now known as the D4 is still being produced today and is the most popular Caterpillar track-type tractor ever. The machines of this era were at the forefront of massive and majestic projects, such as Hoover Dam and the Golden Gate Bridge. When the world went to war for a second time, track-type tractors were enlisted again. As the battle raged in the skies over Britain, tractors like the D7 kept London streets clear. Track-type tractors repaired shelled roads, built new ones, and kept vital supply lines open. And these machines led the charge during the Pacific Island hopping campaign, as crawlers were frequently the first to go ashore in amphibious assaults. Admiral William Halsey, commander of the 3rd Fleet, said there were 4 things that helped us win the war in the Pacific: airplanes, tanks, submarines, and tractor bulldozers. When General Eisenhower became President Eisenhower, his 1956 Federal Aid Highway Act meant the construction of a national interstate system, and it meant even more work for track-type tractors.
It's just hard to believe that we could have gotten along without a crawler tractor in this period of time, because when you think about it, there was no way for the infrastructure to start being put together without having a machine that could go on the side of a hill, for example, and cut out a bench so they could start building a highway around there, and then of course to push the dirt out so they could make a road around the hill.
It was around this time that track-type tractors played a key role in a massive undertaking, the creation of what is essentially the 8th Sea. The St. Lawrence Seaway would become a vital link between North America and international waters. To carve out this series of canals and locks, track-type tractors fought some of the toughest materials found on the continent, working tirelessly to deepen the river and raise bridges. This would allow even the largest of ships to pass through. Track-type tractors have consistently gone to the ends of the earth to get the job done. These D8s were instrumental in work for the U.S. Antarctic Research Program. From hauling material to building stations to constructing paths, these machines performed for 50 years in sub-zero temperatures on the South Pole's frozen tundra, without sinking or slipping. At the other end of the earth, track-type tractors were laying the groundwork for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. Aside from the pipeline itself, crawlers helped construct dikes to hold 40,000-gallon tanks for gas and diesel fuel to power all the equipment needed for the project. Track-type tractors were vital in building the first highway to the Arctic Ocean, 361 miles long, and in excavating areas which would become the terminals that handled the oil. 2 years and $8 billion later, the pipeline would be able to move oil from the northernmost slope of Alaska to the northernmost ice-free port. It was the largest privately funded construction project of its time. The 70s also saw two important developments in the design of the track-type tractor. A sealed, lubricated track system, introduced in 1976, greatly reduced wear on the components that have always been a major part of the cost of crawler operation. The following year, Caterpillar unveiled the D10, the first such machine with the elevated sprocket. This design isolated clutches and brakes from shock, protecting the sprockets from dirt, water, and debris. In the 80s, a national energy program in Turkey called on the power of track-type tractors for the construction of 48 hydroelectric power stations. One of these, the Ataturk Dam, is the 5th largest dam in the world. The total earth-moving volume on this project exceeded 120 million cubic meters. In 1986, Caterpillar's D11N entered the scene. The first versions had a longer track frame, which also meant an additional 21 inches of track. Today, the D11R is the largest of our track-type tractors, with abilities Benjamin Holt could have only dreamed of.
Oh, of course he'd be happy as a clam, naturally, to see it, just to know that this kind of machine was developed from what he had developed. Yeah, he'd be in, as they say, hog heaven, because he was a machinery man. He just loved machinery, and so he would have thought there was nothing better than getting up on a D11 and running it. That's for sure, and watching it work too.
Track-type tractors continued to build and rebuild our world. Originally powered by steam, then gas, and finally diesel, the next generation of diesel engines are moving track-type tractors forward more efficiently than ever before, while dramatically reducing emissions. For the past 100 years, track-type tractors have helped people build enormous canals and dams. They've been there to improve the way we supply water and transport oil and natural gas. They've been there to build the foundations of buildings, paved the way for us to bridge many distances, and cemented their place in history.
I think is still being made. History. These great big operating things that you see in these mines and stuff, that's a terrific advance, you know? And that's just come by necessity. You know, most inventions are from necessity. A guy needs to do something and there's nothing made to do it. So he can see where he can make something to do it. And it isn't that some guy gets a brainstorm and you know, dreams of this thing. It's necessity.
Track-type tractors can dig through the surface of the earth and clear land faster than ever before and in the harshest of conditions. Whatever comes next, you can be sure that track-type tractors will continue to blaze a trail into the future.